Hey guys, tonight we are drifting up into a sky full of stars, where clouds curl like sleepy dragons and thunder rumbles far off like a lazy gent rolling over in his bed. You're flying, not walking. Your wings are strong, your hooves steady, and your mane is caught in the wind like a flag announcing your arrival. Below you, Mount Helicon glows in the moonlight. The Muses are hosting another poetry night, and someone brought lyres again. But high above them, a storm is brewing. Lightning flashes quietly in the distance. You're not scared exactly, but your feathers twitch when the first crack lights up the clouds like broken glass. You were just looking for a place to nap. What you got was an all-night skyquake. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing, tell me where you are and what time it is where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your hoofs tap along the edge of a cliff. You can see the Muses scrambling below, gathering up their scrolls and spilled ink. Someone has dropped a basket of lychee and is chasing fruit down a marble path. Normally, you would laugh, but a jagged bolt splits the sky again and you flatten your ears. You leap into the air, wings wide. You have been struck by lightning once before. It was not pleasant. It made your tail smell like cooked marshmallow for a week and left you unable to blink in rhythm with the stars, which is how you usually sleep. So, you head higher, toward clearer air. But something strange catches your eye. A white sheet flaps wildly near the peak. Not cloth from the Muses. This is stiffer, brighter, and stitched with an odd pattern. As you circle closer, you realize it's one of their tunics, strung on a line too close to the storm. You reach out with your teeth, gently gripping the edge to pull it free. Lightning flashes again, closer this time. The cloth flaps harder, whacking you in the face like a disapproving toka. And then, just as you get it loose, the entire clothes line rises into the clouds. You let go, startled, and follow it with your eyes. It does not fall. It rises, climbing like ivy, twisting into the clouds, trailing damp socks and glittering robes as it vanishes into the storm. You hover in place, wings flapping slowly. Your mane drips with rain. The sky rumbles again. You squint upward. There is definitely a door up there, hanging midair. It opens, just a crack, and then closes again. You should fly away. You really should. But instead, you rise, slow and careful. Your wings slice through the thick mist. The lightning stops for a moment. The clouds hush, and you tap gently against the door with your front hoof. It swings open. Inside, the storm is organized. Neatly stacked scrolls mark rain south, thunder midday, and fog for weddings line every wall. A woman at a desk scribbles with 5 hands. A man on a ladder mutters to himself while adjusting a shelf labeled Tuesday Gus. You blink. No one notices you at first. Then someone turns, glances up, and drops their scroll. Oh no, he says. The horse is early. You step in. Your hooves do not clatter. The clouds here are firm but quiet, like well-baked bread. The room hushes. Another worker, this one wearing monocles, steps forward and inspects your wings. Sturdy, fast, slightly singed. He checks a scroll, nods, and points to a line that says New Courier. Feathered, mythical, mildly punctual. You try to explain that you are just helping with laundry, but someone hands you a delivery schedule and a small satchel marked with a Thunderbolt symbol. Apparently, you have been hired. No one listens to your protests. The 5-handed woman just waves you toward the door on the opposite side of the room. It opens to a glowing tunnel that hums with energy. You step through, the satchel bouncing against your flank. Behind you, someone mutters, "Let's hope this one can actually read a map." You snort and flap your wings. Ahead lies the start of something new. Possibly electrified, possibly full of meetings, possibly your new job. You glide into the tunnel, the satchel still thumping lightly against your side. The walls around you shimmer with a soft pulse, like clouds that have decided to glow politely. You try to take it all in, but the moment you flap your wings just once too strongly, the air responds with a loud whoosh and tosses you forward like laundry on the line. You tumble out into a large, circular chamber that appears to be carved out of pure fog. Floating desks drift lazily around the perimeter, manned by beings in uniforms that look suspiciously like togas with shoulder pads. This, apparently, is the cloud complaint department. Someone coughs gently. A receptionist floats over, gliding with the elegance of a leaf on a breeze. She peers at you through translucent spectacles and tilts her head. "Name?" she asks. You open your mouth, but only a whinny comes out. She scribbles something anyway. "Reason for visit." You gesture to your new satchel and then shrug with your wings. Her eyes widen. She glances at a scroll, then at a nearby bell, then at you again. "You are the new Thunder Courier." It is not a question. You nod slowly. She presses a cloudy stamp onto a slip of paper and hands it to you with the enthusiasm of someone who has already lived this moment too many times. "Follow the lightning stripes to the assignment window," she says. You look down. The floor is patterned with glowing yellow lines, zigzagging like a toddler's drawing of thunder. You follow them. The room buzzes with conversation. Voices rise from the floating desks. "I ordered a drizzle, not a downpour. My crops were flattened." Again, "This fog has been here since last Thursday." You pass a desk where a centaur argues with a rain nymph about something involving Miss Quotas. Another desk is manned by a tree with a monocle, apparently representing forest interests. You are not sure how it wrote its complaint letter, but the ink smells like bark. At the window, a woman with silver hair and a clipboard glances up. "You're the flyer," she says. You nod. She flips a page. "We've had 3 missed deliveries, 2 Thunderbolts returned because of faulty aim, and 1 incident involving a startled oracle. We need a reliable creature, one who can follow instructions and not explode anything important." You try to look serious. You do your best not to think about the time you sneezed and knocked over a temple pillar. She hands you a sealed packet and taps a glowing map on the desk. Your first official assignment is a soft thunder burst over Thessaly, gentle but firm, enough to remind them it is spring, not summer. You glance at the packet. It is heavier than it looks. Inside is a single bolt, wrapped in cloudy gauze and humming softly. "Handle it gently," she says. "Thunder has moods." You nod again and take the packet in your teeth. As you turn to leave, you hear someone mutter, "At least it's not that griffin again. Last time, he dropped the entire storm into a parade." You flap into the air, glide toward the exit, and push through the swinging doors, which feel a bit too dramatic for a weather office. Outside, the sky yawns open. You hover for a moment, the clouds stretching wide below you. Far in the distance, the mountains of Thessaly glimmer with the golden green of early growth. The wind nudges you forward, as if it, too, is part of your training. You fly low, the bolt snug in your satchel, its energy humming against your side. The journey is smooth at first. The skies here are polite. No surprise updrafts, no wandering zephyrs, just steady cloud lanes and distant thunder, like a soundtrack composed by a sleepy god with excellent timing. You approach the edge of Thessaly and begin to descend. Below, olive groves shimmer, sheep graze in perfect boredom. A farmer leans on a rake and squints upward. He senses something but shrugs it off. His goat looks more alarmed. You release the bolt with a careful twist of your head. It tumbles downward, slower than expected, and lands with a deep, satisfying boom that echoes over the hills. The sheep do not run. The goat only flicks one ear. Success. You rise again, pleased with yourself, until you feel something tug at your tail. A scrap of scroll flutters up beside you. It is a complaint. "You were 5 minutes early," it says. You stare at it. The scroll curls slightly in midair, then vanishes into mist. Apparently, the cloud complaint department is always watching. You sigh and turn back toward the floating office, your wings stretching out wide as you pick up speed. A job is a job, even if your only reward is not being turned into a constellation by accident. You return to the floating office just as a new storm starts rolling in. The clouds have thickened, puffed up like overconfident pillows, and a light drizzle tickles your mane as you circle back to the glowing entrance tunnel. No one meets you at the door. Instead, the storm itself seems to part politely, letting you step through without even a flash of thunder. You trot in, the satchel now empty, its strap still damp from the drizzle. Inside, the cloud complaint department is buzzing. Literally, a small swarm of sky bees has gotten loose from a weather crate marked Himalayan mist experiment. They hover around a glowing orb that keeps changing color, and one poor intern is swatting at them with a clipboard that says "Do not swat." You weave around them, aiming for the main desk. This time, the receptionist greets you with a nod and a slight frown. "You were early," she says, tapping a scroll with her quill. You shake your head as if to say, "But just barely." Before she can argue, a loud pop echoes through the hallway, and suddenly, Hermes is standing in front of you. Well, he is floating slightly, wearing winged sandals, and looking as though he has just jogged here from a divine gym class. "There you are," he says, pointing at you. "You are the horse." You nod. Again, he squints at you, then pulls out a tiny scroll and scans it. Pegasus, winged, capable of short-range storm delivery, unclaimed by any current hero, mildly punctual, perfect. Before you can ask perfect for what, he tosses a shiny coin into the air. It hovers above you, spins 3 times, then turns into a badge. "Congratulations," Hermes says, catching it mid-float and slapping it on your satchel. "You are now a temporary junior courier of meteorological importance." Effective immediately, you glance down at the badge. It says Assistant Bolt Bearer. The font is elegant. The word assistant is underlined. "You'll shadow me for a few shifts," Hermes continues. "Mostly paperwork and wing stretching. No delivering anything explosive without supervision, especially not to oracles. They complain more than the olives." He spins and gestures for you to follow him through a side door. As you step into the hallway, he chatters. "Back when I started, we carried scrolls. Real ones. Heavy things. None of these cloud-stored lightning orders. We flew uphill both ways." You try to keep up. He walks quickly, his sandals flapping as if they have opinions. He stops at a glass panel set into the cloud wall. Beyond it lies a large chamber filled with storm bolts. Some hover, some fizz. One sneezes and lets out a tiny thunderclap that causes a breeze to knock over a nearby mug. "This," Hermes says, "is where the fun begins." He strides inside. You follow carefully. We log each bolt, assign it a route, pair it with the right messenger, and hope it doesn't go rogue halfway over the Ionian Sea. Last week, one tried to join Adolf in school. He picks up a clipboard and hands it to you. "Read me this order." You try. It mostly sounds like a weather-themed riddle. He nods approvingly. "Close enough. That one is for a wedding rain blessing. Very gentle. Just a light sprinkle and a dramatic clap during the vow." He leans close. "You wouldn't believe how many of those we get." He shows you a storage pod labeled ceremonial. Inside are bolts shaped like spirals, hearts, and once, confusingly, a spoon. "Poseidon's idea," Hermes mutters. He lets you explore for a bit. You nose at a bolt that hums in a sleepy way, then back away quickly when it flashes a little brighter than you like. Hermes finishes checking a list and waves for you to follow him out again. "This is your test phase," he says. "You will shadow me, learn the bolts, know the moods, avoid misdeliveries, and for the love of Olympus, never drop anything in Hades' jurisdiction again." We are still getting angry scrolls. As you fly behind him through another misty corridor, you notice how everyone parts to let Hermes through. Even the bees make way. You land beside him at a launch pad shaped like a cloud cradle. He hands you a small bolt, this one quiet and pulsing with a gentle golden light. "Take this to the western hills of Attica," he says. "Straight flight. Avoid crosswinds. Do not spook any shepherds." You take it in your mouth and leap into the sky. Behind you, Hermes shouts, and no early arrivals this time. Zeus gets picky. You soar into open air. The bolt hums against your teeth like a polite tune. Below, hills roll and tilt gently toward the sea. A few sheep glance upward, uninterested. One continues chewing a fig leaf. You slow your wings, timing the drop perfectly. The bolt falls. It whispers across the sky. It lands with a soft thrum, sending out just enough noise to startle the birds into a short, confused chorus. You smile. Then you loop once, purely for fun, and turn back toward the sky office. Your badge gleams a little brighter. You lean back at the weather office with a little more confidence in your step. Your wings fold smoothly, your hooves click gently on the cloud floor, and your badge catches the light in a way that feels almost impressive. No one is watching, of course, except a sleepy-looking satyr mopping up spilled rainwater and a nymph trying to convince a bolt to stop pouting in a corner. Hermes is waiting by a long scroll-covered bench, one foot perched dramatically on a small lightning crate. He gestures for you to come closer. "Time for bolt handling 101, he says, with the tone of someone who has said it too many times already. We start simple. No juggling, no dramatic dives. This is not a hero audition." You nod. He points at a stack of labeled crates. Each one hums softly, as if the bolts inside are snoring. "First, know your types," he begins. "Standard bolts, whisper bolts, rattlers, boomers, flash empas, sizzle threads, and, of course, the divinely unpredictable ups-I-trip variety. Avoid those." You glance at the crates. One of them glows a bit redder than the others and mutters something that sounds like a sneeze. Hermes avoids it entirely. He walks you to a practice zone, which is just a patch of soft cloud marked with gold thread and several scorch marks. A cranky-looking centaur stands nearby, chewing on a sprig of something green and staring at you like you just tracked mud into his marble foyer. "This is Trainer Phylax," Hermes says. "He's in charge of courier safety. He has opinions." The centaur nods once, the kind of nod that says he is already disappointed. "You are the new flyer," he says slowly. "Good wings, soft eyes, too clean." He tosses you a wrapped practice bolt. You catch it. It vibrates like a mild hiccup. "Lesson 1, he says. "Never carry a bolt by the end. Always by the center, unless it is sulking. Then cradle it like a grumpy cat." You adjust your grip. The bolt hums a little louder, apparently satisfied. "Lesson 2, he continues. "Always check the weather around you before release. No whine tantrums. No thunder overlaps. Last week, a courier caused hail in a bakery." Hermes chuckles. "Those croissants never recovered." Phylax snorts. He makes you trot in a circle with the bolt. Then fly straight up and hover. Then dive just enough to test your reflexes. The bolt does not misbehave, but it flickers once when you pass a rogue cloud that smells like burnt toast. "Lesson 3, Phylax says. "Do not trust the bolts that seem to quiet. They are usually planning something." You land again and hand the bolt back. He sniffs it, nods, and places it in a cooling basket made of vines and soft cloth. "That one will be ready for real work soon," he mutters. Hermes claps you on the shoulder with a winged hand. "Good first session. You didn't drop it, melt anything, or trigger an eclipse." You puff your chest a little. "Tomorrow, we start real routes," Hermes says. "But first, nectar break." You follow them to a side lounge made of translucent cloud pillows and small glowing tables. A few other couriers are there, sipping from mugs shaped like flower petals and nibbling on golden crackers that sparkle faintly with stardust. A harpy waves at you. You wave back, a little uncertainly. Hermes hands you a mug. The nectar is warm, sweet, and somehow tastes like sunshine mixed with mint and just a hint of cinnamon. You sip carefully, letting the flavor sit on your tongue. Across the room, a griffin tries to balance 3 scrolls while dipping a cracker into a tiny jar of honey. It fails. Everyone pretends not to notice. You lie back on a cloud pillow and let the warmth settle in your belly. Your hooves relax. Your wings stretch just enough. Phylax sits nearby, mumbling something about bolt alignment and chewing another sprig. Hermes leans over. "Most couriers don't last a week," he says casually. "Some forget the routes. Some try to race the thunder. One got turned into a mailbox." You blink. "Kidding," he says. "Mostly." He finishes his nectar and stands. "Rest now. The real deliveries start at dawn. And remember, never argue with a storm that knows your name." You are not sure what that means, but you nod anyway. The room dims as the sun begins to dip below the cloud line. You watch golden light pour over the sky, turning the storm crates into glowing shapes that flicker like stories half remembered. You close your eyes for a moment. Somewhere, A bolt laughs. You wake before the sun rises. The sky is a quiet blue-gray, still half asleep, and the clouds hang low and lazy. The air tastes like early rain and the last cool breath of night. You stretch your wings gently. They are stiff from yesterday's flying, but eager for whatever comes next. Hermes meets you at the edge of the cloud dock. He is holding a scroll and chewing something that smells like lightning-infused fig. His sandals flap once and then still, as if even they are waiting for instructions. Today, he says, you begin the commute. You tilt your head. The commute. Hermes grins. It is one thing to deliver bolts. It is quite another to fly them across Mount Olympus in the morning rush. He opens the scroll. It unfurls dramatically and nearly smacks you in the face. Your route takes you through 8 weather zones, past 3 minor wine deities, and across at least 1 harpy nesting ground. You must arrive at the bolt vault before Zeus notices the coffee is late. We like him calm. You nod and step onto the cloud pad. Hermes hands you a small satchel. Inside are 2 standard bolts wrapped in soft gauze and tied with golden thread. They hum like bees napping inside teacups. You will not drop these, Hermes says. You try to look serious. He nods and steps back. The launch pad hums beneath your hooves. You leap into the sky. The first part of the flight is smooth. You pass over lazy mist, glide between puffy banks of sleepy cumulus, and wave to a sleepy heron flying in the opposite direction. He does not wave back. Rude. Then the wind shifts. A cross breeze darts at you, sharp and playful. You adjust your wings and hold steady. The satchel swings slightly. The bolts grumble inside but stay put. You approach the first wine deity checkpoint. A small hut floats in the sky, tethered to a rock by a single vine. A creature with feathers and a clipboard hovers near it. She points at your badge, checks your scroll, and waves you through. You nod politely. Moments later, a flock of wild zephyrs zips past. They are young, probably no older than breezes, and giggle as they tangle your mane. One tries to open your satchel mid-flight. You whinny in protest. It tumbles away, laughing. You dive slightly, regain speed, and shake off the last of the sky ticklers. The second weather zone is heavy with golden fog. You slow down and squint. Shapes loom ahead, large and lumpy. They resolve into a parade of migrating storm clouds, each one trailing ribbons of lightning and puffing steam like overworked kettles. You wait for a break and zip through. The clouds mutter behind you. One of them whistles in admiration. Or maybe it is just leaking. Next, you pass over a field of floating sheep, cloud-formed and dream-heavy. They drift in small herds. You bank left carefully. One sheep looks up and bleats softly. It might be the nicest thing anyone has said to you all morning. Now, the real challenge begins. Apollo is attempting to park his sun chariot. The sky around Mount Olympus is full of fire trails, spilled sunlight, and a very confused chorus of glowing horses that seem to be arguing with their harnesses. Apollo stands on a floating platform, yelling instructions that make no sense. Back left. No, your left. Shine brighter. That is not even gold. You try to fly wide, but a glint of sunlight bounces directly into your eyes. You squint, veer, and nearly clip a hanging vine of thunderberries. One of the sun chariot horses notices you and snorts. Nice satchel, he says. You nod, pretending it is normal to be complimented by solar stallions. You finally emerge from the tangle of sunlight and dive toward the bolt vault. It sits at the peak of Mount Olympus, carved into a cliff and guarded by 2 statues that might be sleeping, or they might be watching. It is hard to tell with statues. You land gently at the front entrance. The satchel is still secure. The bolts inside hum patiently, as if proud of you. A nymph opens the vault door. She raises an eyebrow. On time. You nod. She takes the bolts carefully, unwraps one, and places it on a pedestal. It fizzles once, then settles. She nods in approval. From somewhere inside the vault, a voice booms. Is that my thunder? You stiffen. The nymph waves you away. Zeus is always cranky before his second bolt. You step outside and take a deep breath. The morning sky is brighter now, a soft gold brushing over Olympus. The wind has calmed. The zephyrs are probably back in their clouds. Even the sun chariot has stopped spinning. Hermes appears beside you. You survive the commute, he says. And look, no burn marks. You smile, just a little. He hands you a scroll. Next up, bolt inventory. But first, nectar pancakes. You follow him toward a side path that smells like honey and cinnamon. Behind you, the vault door closes with a gentle thud. The commute is over. For now, you follow Hermes along a winding sky path paved with light. It curls behind Mount Olympus like a ribbon, glowing faintly with morning mist. Your wings rest easy against your sides, but your hooves tap a little faster. Maybe it is the promise of nectar pancakes. Maybe it is the lingering fizz of your first proper commute. Hermes talks as he walks, tossing bits of lightning trivia into the air like crumbs for curious birds. Most people think Zeus throws the bolts by hand. He only does that when he's annoyed. Otherwise, we deliver them. You know, properly. Scheduled, tagged, logged. You nod, even though your thoughts are already drifting toward whatever a pancake soaked in nectar tastes like. You arrive at a wide stone archway carved into the mountain. Clouds drift in and out of it lazily, and above the door, gold letters shimmer. They spell Thunderbolt storage and miscellaneous globables. Inside, it smells like warm ozone, toasted figs, and a faint trace of something metallic. Dozens of bolts rest in neat rows along floating racks, each gently humming. Some are curled into spiral shapes, others lie flat, like glowing snakes napping in the sun. A soft voice greets you. First delivery complete. Pegasus has arrived. The voice comes from the wall, or maybe the ceiling. You are not entirely sure, but it sounds polite. Hermes smiles. Meet Echo. She keeps the vault sorted, has opinions about filing. You blink. The walls shimmer slightly. A breeze rustles through the room like a whisper with an attitude. She also monitors bolt moods. Hermes says, "We do not want to hand Zeus a grumpy one." You trot along the rows, peering at labels. There is a rack marked spring showers. Light grumble. Another says moonlight sparkle with distant roar. One particularly large section is labeled for emergency use only. The bolts here pulse with a heavy rhythm, like they are holding in a sneeze the size of a volcano. Hermes steers you toward a smaller shelf. These are starter bolts, he says. Beginner friendly. Less fizzle, less temper. You inspect them. They look harmless enough. One of them even hums a little tune, as if it is passing the time while waiting for its moment. Take two, Hermes says. We will do an internal circuit, just enough to get your hooves comfortable. You gently place the bolts in your satchel. They settle in like sleeping kittens, slightly glowing, slightly buzzing kittens. Echo speaks again. Warning, bolt number 74 prefers to travel on the left side of the satchel. You adjust it. Immediately, the humming smooths out. Hermes grins. She is never wrong. You follow him down a spiral ramp into a deeper section of the vault. This is where we keep the historical bolts, he says. They are not in circulation anymore, but they carry stories. Some were thrown during epic battles. Some were made for ceremonies. You pass a glass case containing a bolt shaped like a lyre. That one was meant to strike during a music contest. Missed the target and hit a tree. The tree still sings. Another case holds a bolt wrapped in ivy and scented with rosemary. Trial bolt for Artemis. She refused it, said it clashed with her arrows. You pause at one last display. Inside is a very small bolt, no bigger than your hoof. It glows a deep, steady blue. Hermes lowers his voice. That was the first one Zeus ever made. He keeps it here to remind himself not to overdo things. You nod, though you are not sure Zeus remembers that lesson very often. You climb back to the main vault. Hermes points toward a side door marked couriers only. You follow him through and find a small lounge. The tables are carved from driftwood. The chairs are soft, built to fit hooves, wings, or tentacles, depending on the guest. A tray floats over. On it are stacks of golden pancakes, each drizzled with nectar that smells like sunlight and tastes like melted joy. You take one bite and feel your feathers fluff. Hermes sips from a mug of starlight tea. Tomorrow, you learn how to handle misfires, he says casually, and delivery complaints. But for now, eat. You finish the pancakes slowly. Each bite eases something in your chest. The sweetness seeps into your bones. You let yourself sink into the chair. Outside, the sky glows brighter. The vault hums gently. The bolts rest quietly. And for now, everything feels just right. You stretch your wings after breakfast, trying not to look as full as you feel. The nectar pancakes have settled into your belly like a gentle lullaby, and for a moment, you wonder if Hermes might accidentally let you nap for the rest of the morning. He does not. Instead, he tosses you a new satchel, this one made of thicker cloud fabric and reinforced with silver thread. It looks important. It also smells like burnt almonds, which is either a good omen or a very specific warning. Ready for a challenge? Hermes asks, spinning a scroll between his fingers. Time to see what happens when a bolt goes where it is not supposed to. You blink. You thought this was going to be another friendly training flight. He must see your hesitation, because he pats you lightly on the shoulder. Nothing major. A gazebo got in the way. No one was in it. Just a few startled pigeons and one very angry garden gnome. You follow him through the rear exit of the lounge. The corridor leads to a small circular platform suspended in the open air. From here, you can see the valley below and a few rooftops peeking through the morning mist. Hermes holds up the scroll. Yesterday, during a drizzle rehearsal, someone sneezed mid-aim. Bolt number 49 veered left and landed in the middle of a philosopher's retreat. No injuries, but it turned a marble bench into toast. You try not to laugh. The philosopher insists it was divine critique. Hermes adds, "But we are required to clean up. That is your job." He hands you a repair scroll and a fresh bolt. The new one is soft blue, steady and calm. It radiates peaceful apology, probably on purpose. You fly out slowly, eyes scanning the terrain. It is not far to the retreat. A small circular clearing ringed by laurel trees and dotted with marble benches. You spot the scorched one right away. It looks very embarrassed to still be smoking. You land gently. The philosopher stands nearby, holding a teacup and staring at the sky. He does not flinch when you arrive. He simply nods. You are the repair. You nod back. "Very good," he says. "Please inform your supervisor that my next manuscript will include a footnote about impolite celestial furniture." You unfold the scroll and let it hover. The bolt hovers beside it, examining the damage. After a brief pulse of light and a polite crackle, the marble bench shimmers. When the light fades, it is restored, smoother than before, maybe even a bit too smooth. The philosopher runs his hand along the bench. "Suspiciously comfortable," he mutters. "Almost unnaturally ergonomic." You make a polite sound, lift into the air, and head back to Olympus. At the vault, Hermes is lounging with one leg over the back of a cloud couch. "Bench fixed." You nod. "Philosopher grumpy?" You nod again. "Perfect. You're learning." He tosses you another scroll. This one is marked Trial Run 2. Targeted impact. He raises an eyebrow. "Time to test your aim." You take the scroll and glance at the target zone, a small clearing near the base of Mount Parnassus. No people, just a stone marker and a few scattered pine trees. It is a controlled test. You breathe in slowly. Hermes floats beside you as you prepare the bolt. This one is a light boomer, meant to echo once, then fizzle out, just enough to stir the clouds. No damage unless you hit something living. You take flight. The air is crisp. You fly higher than usual, using the extra height to steady your descent. The bolt glows in your satchel, eager and ready. You reach the clearing, hover above the marker, and release. The bolt dives gracefully. It lands with a sound like thunder being thoughtful. The ground shakes just a little. The echo rolls across the hills and fades. The trees rustle, but nothing breaks. Hermes is already there when you turn around. "Well done," he says, actually sounding impressed. "You are more accurate than last week's griffin." He hit a bakery. Twice. You land beside him. He gestures back toward Olympus. "Let's log the result, and I will show you the room where we test new bolt types. You will like that one." Lots of noise, very little paperwork. You flap your wings and head back up through the soft layers of mist. Behind you, the echo of your bolt fades slowly, like a lullaby whispered by clouds. You follow Hermes through the upper corridors of the vault, where the air is warmer and the floors feel a little softer under hoof. The ceilings here shimmer with hints of static, and somewhere above you, a low bass hum lingers, like a thunderstorm taking a very slow nap. Hermes points to a golden archway. This is the staff hall, he says. Technically, it is for meetings, break time, and the occasional ambrosia sing-along. Today, we are attending your first staff gathering. You blink. A meeting. He reads your expression and grins. Don't worry. There are snacks. You step inside. The hall is round and glowing. Cloud-cushioned benches line the walls, and a circular buffet table floats in the middle, stocked with grapes, cubes of stardust cheese, honey cakes, and tiny jars of cloudberry jam. A few other couriers are already lounging, nibbling on biscuits and swapping stories. Dionysus is there too, dressed in robes that sparkle like morning dew and wearing mismatched sandals. He waves a goblet at you as you enter. Pegasus, the new bolt jockey. You nod politely. He grins. Welcome to the club. Try the grapes. They taste like laughter. Hermes leads you to a spot near the center and passes you a cracker topped with glowing honey. You take a bite. It crunches softly and tastes like a memory of summer. A bell chimes gently, and the room quiets. Echo's voice drifts down from above. Weekly courier assembly now in session. Attendants scroll open. Names float through the air like mist. Yours appears, winks, then settles beside Hermes's. A nymph raises her hand. I move to reduce the zap count on northbound trial routes. We startled a wedding last week. A thunderbird flaps his wings in agreement. I second that. My feathers are still ruffled. A few chuckles ripple through the room. Hermes clears his throat. Proposal acknowledged. Northbound routes will be reassessed with the mild sparkle bolts for trial purposes. Someone claps. Someone else drops a grape and mutters. Next, a short centaur courier stands and waves a folded scroll. I have a concern, she says. We are not receiving enough nectar breaks. Echo hums thoughtfully. Regulations currently state 1 break per for deliveries. Would you like to propose a revision? The centaur nods. I suggest 3 breaks, regardless of delivery count. Dionysus laughs. Make it 4. Life is short. Nectar is good. The room erupts in sleepy agreement. Even Hermes raises his goblet. Motion carried. Echo announces. Nectar breaks now adjusted. You glance around. Everyone looks pleased. It is less a meeting and more a gentle negotiation between creatures who fly too much and snack too little. A breeze drifts in through an open sky window. It carries the scent of distant rain. A scroll unrolls midair, listing updates. Upcoming weather shifts. Light drizzle over Ephesus. Fog enhancements requested for Delphi. Celebration thunder scheduled over Thebes this weekend. The last item floats slowly, as if shy. Reminder: all complaints filed by mortal philosophers should be delivered to Hermes for translation. You snort quietly. Hermes pats your side. Translating complaints is half the job. Most of them are written in metaphor anyway. The meeting ends with a soft chime, and the buffet table gently disappears through the floor. Dionysus claps you on the back. Good work so far. Come to my next party. We are stormproofing the ceiling this time. You nod as he wanders off, leaving behind the faint smell of sweet wine and lyre strings. Hermes leads you to a nearby window, where a cloud bench has been shaped into a wing-friendly perch. Not bad for your first meeting, he says. You stayed awake, didn't startle anyone, and you only knocked over to chairs. You tilt your head. You had not noticed the chairs. He continues. This is the part most new couriers do not expect. The meetings, the rules, the snacks, the complaints. Most think it is just soaring and storms. He looks out over the sky. But storms are only part of the job. Most of what we do is remind the world how to listen. You follow his gaze. The sky stretches endlessly, soft and golden, dotted with drifting clouds shaped like stories waiting to be told. He hands you a scroll. One last delivery before your break. You smile and leap from the window. The air welcomes you back with open arms. You glide downward through a column of sunlight, the scroll tucked securely in your satchel and the breeze perfectly warm on your wings. The air smells faintly of pine and something toasted, though you hope that is not another philosopher's bench incident waiting to happen. This delivery is supposed to be simple. Hermes told you the destination is the island of Crete. More specifically, to a weather observatory perched on a lonely cliff. The bolt inside your scroll, meant to shake a few clouds into motion and give the locals something to talk about. No damage, just flair. As you descend, the sea spreads out beneath you, its surface shimmering like glass painted by moonlight. A few gulls flap by with the look of creatures who never take their jobs seriously. You nod to them. They ignore you. The coastline of Crete rises ahead, dotted with olive groves, sun-washed hills, and, of course, the observatory, a narrow tower with a copper dome and 3 very nervous goats standing beside it. You circle once before landing. The goats stare at you. You stare back. Then, from the tower, a shout. "Are you the delivery?" You nod. The voice belongs to a man in a wide hat, holding a spyglass and wearing far too many belts for someone who studies clouds. "You're early," he calls, then squints. Or possibly late. Hard to tell. Time moves oddly up here. You trot closer and pass him the scroll. He takes it reverently, as if you've just handed him a birthday cake wrapped in prophecy. "This is the bolt for the dry breeze experiment," he mutters, unrolling the parchment. "Should produce 1 clap of thunder, followed by a gentle humidity shift and hopefully no goats falling over this time." You look at the goats. They look back, unbothered. The man walks to a small platform and gestures for you to stand beside him. "We always like to watch the drop," he says. "It's become tradition." You open the satchel with a gentle motion and release the bolt. It rises slowly at first, glowing a soft copper color. Then, with a tiny snap, it shoots into the sky and detonates in a muted, elegant pop, like thunder politely tapping at the clouds. A ripple passes through the air. The sky clears slightly. A breeze picks up. The goats continue chewing. The man nods. "Perfect," he says. "Tell Hermes I still owe him a storm in a bottle." You blink. That sounds like something worth investigating later. As you take off, you notice something below. Near the base of the cliff, hidden in the rocks, a cave. Nothing unusual about that, except the mouth of the cave has been lined with tiny mirrors. You make a mental note of it, then return to the sky. The flight back is smooth until you've hit a pocket of warm air that pushes you sideways. A moment later, the clouds part, and you are face to face with a drifting cluster of weather nymphs. They are reclining on puffs of mist, sipping cold dew from leaf cups and braiding sunbeams into their hair. One of them looks up. "You're flying through a restricted nap zone," she says. You flap once, hover, and try to look apologetic. Another nymph waves lazily. "You knew." You nod. "Just avoid the lower stratus between noon and sunset. That's our dreaming corridor." You promise to reroute next time and gently glide upward. As you rise, a small bolt of mischief zips past your left wing. Not one of yours. You follow it briefly and spot a minor wine spirit chasing it with a large butterfly net and a very flustered expression. "Come back here," the spirit wheezes. "That bolt is not for chasing swans." The bolt loops and dives, cackling as it goes. You decide to keep flying. Some messes are better left for someone with a net. By the time you return to the vault, Hermes is perched on a ledge, reading a scroll with a raised eyebrow. "Crete mission complete," he asks. You nod and add a small shrug to suggest everything went as planned. "Excellent," he says. "They will probably write a poem about it." The goats usually do. You are not sure if he is serious. He waves the scroll he is holding. "We have a new route tomorrow," he says. "But first, I thought you deserved a visit to the bolt closet." You tilt your head. That sounds both intriguing and faintly dangerous. "It is where Zeus stores the ones he is not sure about," Hermes explains. "The weird ones. The leftovers. The prototypes." He calls it organized chaos. You follow Hermes down a spiral staircase that glows with gentle pulses of light. At the bottom is a door that looks far too small for something so important. Hermes taps it twice. It opens slowly, and the scent of static and lavender drifts out. Inside are rows of shelves, each one cluttered with bolts wrapped in different materials: silk, metal mesh, flower petals, even what appears to be salted dough. You step forward carefully. One bolt blinks at you. Another purrs. A third hums the opening notes of a sea shanty. "These," Hermes says, "are for special occasions." or terrible ideas, or both. You do not touch anything. Not yet. You stand quietly in the bold closet, trying to take in the sheer strangeness around you. The room is bigger than it looked from the outside. Much bigger. Shelves spiral upward into a sky-blue ceiling that occasionally flashes with tiny clouds and floating punctuation marks, as though the closet itself is constantly rewriting its inventory. Hermes strolls ahead, pointing things out casually. This one, he says, gesturing to a bolt wrapped in velvet and resting on a pillow of feathers, was designed to create silence. Total silence. It was supposed to calm thunderstorms. Instead, it muted an entire orchestra mid-performance. They're still recovering. You step carefully around a bolt encased in what looks like glass made of ice and starlight. It makes a tiny, hiccuping sound with each flicker, and that, Hermes continues, was intended for sea use. Experimental ocean thunder. Poseidon refused it, said it tasted like tin. You raise an eyebrow. Hermes shrugs. He licks everything. Farther in, the shelves become more chaotic. Bolts are suspended in bubbles, jars, and once, a giant clamshell. One shelf is just labeled possibly alive. You give that one a wide berth. Hermes pauses at a case containing a bolt shaped like a corkscrew. This is the one that started raining frogs for 3 weeks. Accidentally summoned a festival. You peer closer. The bolt glows gently, almost bashfully. Historians still argue whether the frogs were magical, meteorological, or just incredibly punctual. Hermes says. You nod slowly. This closet feels less like storage and more like a memory bank of mistakes, miracles, and maybe one-to-many experimental snacks. As you step back toward the center, your hoof accidentally bumps a small, squat jar. It shakes, fizzes, then settles with a quiet sneeze. Hermes gives you a look. Careful, that one contains a sneeze storm. You blink. That is apparently a thing. He gestures toward the door. Let's not tempt the prototypes. Come on, you have a new route. You exit the bolt closet, mildly relieved. Outside, the vault feels almost ordinary again. A nymph passes with a tray of scrolls. A sleepy thunderbird yawns so wide a spark escapes. Hermes hands you a scroll marked with a sun symbol. This delivery goes to a small island town. Peaceful place. They want a weather ripple to remind folks that spring is still in charge. You open the satchel he gives you. Inside is a bolt wrapped in pale gold ribbon. It feels gentle, like a breeze that knows how to sing lullabies. You take off into the sky, wings slicing the warm air. Below, the sea sparkles and the clouds part politely. The island comes into view like a pearl resting in blue silk. Small homes with tiled roofs cluster around a central square. Olive trees sway lightly in the breeze, and a handful of villagers point upward as you pass. You circle once, then release the bolt. It spins downward, glowing softly. When it strikes the air just above the central square, it releases a gentle pop, followed by a shimmer of gold mist that rolls like a wave across the rooftops. The olive trees shake as if applauding. Someone below plays a flute. A dog barks once, then decides to nap instead. You rise back into the sky, satisfied. On your return, you take a shortcut past a ridge of clouds shaped like sleeping lions. They rumble as you pass, but only in their dreams. Back at Olympus, Hermes greets you with a nod. You are improving. No fires, no surprise whirlwinds, no complaints filed in verse. You tilt your head at the last part. He smiles. Poets love a good weather mishap. He waves you toward the courier lounge. It is quieter now. A few others lounge on cloud couches, sipping drinks or massaging sore wings. You settle into your favorite cushion, the one shaped like a crescent moon. A tray drifts toward you, bearing a tiny cake that smells like cinnamon and skyberries. As you take a bite, Hermes sits nearby. You know, he says, most messengers last a week, maybe 2. They get bored, or tired, or they forget the nymphs hate early deliveries. You nod slowly. You remember that scroll floating up to scold you for being 5 minutes early. But you, Hermes says, you seem to belong here. Even the bolts like you. That is rare. You are not sure what to say. So, you finish your cake. He leans back and closes his eyes. Tomorrow, we will do something unusual. A delivery with history. One that is more than just weather. You glance at him. He does not elaborate. The sky outside begins to darken, and the vault fills with the soft, restful hum of settling clouds. You rest your head and let the hum carry you. Tomorrow sounds like it will have stories. The next morning arrives with a sky painted in gentle lavender and gold. You stretch your wings slowly, letting the warmth seep through each feather. The air smells faintly of dew and something sweeter, like a promise waiting to unfold. Hermes is already up, pacing along a narrow cloud ledge near the edge of the vault. He holds a scroll in one hand and a polished apple in the other. He tosses the apple into the air, catches it, takes a bite, and points the scroll toward you. Today's delivery is complicated, he says. You walk closer. He hands you the scroll and continues speaking while chewing. It's to Prometheus. You pause. Prometheus, the titan who stole fire, the one bound to a rock, the one with that eagle problem. You glance at the scroll again. It feels heavy, not in weight but in meaning. Hermes nods, reading your silence. He gets one bolt a year, he says. Symbolic, mostly. Keeps him updated. Technically, it's ceremonial. But the bolt still needs to be delivered. With care, you open the satchel and peer inside. The bolt is unlike the others. It glows a soft, flickering red-orange, like embers remembered from a fire long ago. Its hum is slow and steady, almost thoughtful. Hermes leans in. Don't say anything about chains, or birds, or fire theft, and for Olympus' sake, don't try to make small talk. You nod, gently close the satchel, and take flight. The journey to the edge of the world is longer than usual. The skies grow thinner, the clouds sparser, the wind more serious. Eventually, you see it, a mountain that pierces the clouds, steep and jagged like a scolded peak. A single ledge juts out midway up, where a figure sits, bound by glowing chains that hum with divine rhythm. You land softly. Prometheus does not turn his head. He speaks before you do. You must be the new one. You nod. He sighs. I like the griffin from last year. Brought nectar cookies. You didn't bring cookies, did you? You shake your head. Pity, he mutters. You open the satchel and reveal the bolt. Prometheus looks at it with eyes that flicker brighter for a moment. Not out of fear. Not quite excitement either. Something in between. Same one, he says. They never change it. He gestures with a small movement of his chin. Just place it there, on the rock. You obey, stepping carefully. The stone beneath your hooves is warm, as if the mountain itself remembers fire. You place the bolt on the spot. It pulses gently, then sinks into the stone. A brief flash of light spreads from the contact point, flickering across the chains like a heartbeat. Prometheus closes his eyes. For a moment, the wind holds its breath. Then he speaks. Did they tell you what this is for? You hesitate. He smiles, barely. Of course not. That would be too generous. He shifts slightly, and the chains jingle like distant thunder. They say it is a punishment, a reminder. But really, it is a signal, a way to prove the gods still pay attention, even if only once a year. You say nothing. This does not feel like the moment for jokes or questions. He opens one eye. Tell Hermes the bolt arrived, and tell him the eagle was early this morning. He owes me lunch. You blink. Prometheus chuckles softly. That was a joke. You nod. You were not entirely sure. He sighs again and turns his face back to the horizon. Fly safely. The wind near the river bends. She is in a mood today. You lift off without another word. As you ascend, you glance back once. Prometheus has not moved, but the bolt glows faintly beneath him, like a memory refusing to go out. The return flight is quiet. The clouds part for you, gentle and curious. A few birds fly beside you for a moment, then veer away. When you land at Olympus, Hermes is waiting with 2 scrolls and a cup of steaming nectar. Well, you nod once. Did he say anything clever? You nod again. Hermes sighs. He always does. You take the nectar. It warms your hooves and tickles your nose. Hermes hands you one of the scrolls. This one's lighter, he says. Just a ripple storm over a vineyard. They asked for moody, but romantic. You're the right one for the job. You smile and stretch your wings. As you rise into the sky again, you carry the memory of that mountain, of the soft glowing bolt, and of a chained titan who still manages to joke about lunch. You follow the instructions on the vineyard scroll, banking left over a drifting carpet of fog and tracing a slow curve along the edge of a river that gleams like a spilled ribbon of silver. The wind begins to hum beneath your wings, a familiar rhythm now, steady and reassuring. But then you remember Prometheus's last words, something about a moody wind near the river bend. You glance down. The river is calm, but a mist begins to rise. It coils around your hooves and curls through your feathers, cool and damp like the breath of something just waking up. And then it speaks. Well, not in words, not quite, but the wind here moves with intent, like someone trying to get your attention without being rude about it. It pushes gently against your flight path, nudging you slightly off course. You flap harder and press forward, making small corrections. Below, the trees along the river bank shimmer as the mist winds between them like dancers. Something about this breeze feels ancient and vaguely annoyed. You speak aloud, more out of habit than hope. Just passing through. The wind replies by tugging at your tail. You sigh and fly a little higher. Once you're out of the stubborn air pocket, the sky clears. The vineyard is ahead, stretching across rolling hills, vines curling in neat rows, tiny buds beginning to bloom beneath a soft morning light. The instructions say to release a ripple bolt just before sunset to bring a moody shimmer of rain, ideal for grape conversations and overly romantic poets. You land on a nearby cloud ledge to wait. From here, the vineyard looks peaceful. A few workers move between the vines, tying branches and checking leaves. One of them wears a wide hat shaped like a mushroom. Another sings softly to the grapes. You are not sure if the grapes appreciate it, but no one stops her. You watch quietly. When the sun begins to dip, you open your satchel. The bolt inside is small and silver blue. It hums a gentle tune, as if it already knows the mood it is meant to inspire. You release it. It floats downward, spiraling once, then flicks outward into a fine ripple. Rain begins softly, pattering against the leaves like whispers. The sky darkens slightly, turning violet around the edges, and the vineyard glows. Below, the workers tilt their heads toward the rain. No one runs. One of them raises a glass. Success. You fly back into the deepening sky, trailing a ribbon of cool air in your wake. As you approach Olympus, a familiar landmark appears on your left. A gate, made of obsidian and shaped like a question nobody really wants answered. You did not mean to fly this close, but the wind seems to guide you toward it. You hover, uncertain. The gate opens. Just a crack. You drift closer. The air cools rapidly, thick and still. Beyond the gate lies a vast slope of gray stone and black mist, and at the bottom, a flicker of red-orange light. Hermes once told you not to fly past this gate without a map, a torch, and a very good reason. You do not have a map, or a torch, but you have curiosity. And then, from behind the gate, comes a bark. 3 barks, actually, from 3 heads. Cerberus. You freeze midair. The barking continues. Then it quiets. You spot movement near the light. A shadow shifts, massive and slow. You back away, hooves trembling slightly, and the gate swings shut with a sigh that sounds almost disappointed. You retreat into the clouds and fly the rest of the way back to Olympus in silence. When you land, Hermes is lounging in the hallway, nibbling a thunderberry and reading a scroll upside down. Let me guess, he says without looking up. You got curious. You do not deny it? He sighs and tosses the berry core into a basket. The underworld is not a shortcut, or a joke, or a place for scenic detours. You nod. But, he adds, eyes twinkling, it does have excellent acoustics. The thunder echoes down there for hours. You blink. Don't try it, he says quickly. Just know that it does. He hands you a new scroll and changes the subject. This one is a delivery to a philosopher on a floating boat. He says he's studying storm patterns and the metaphysical implications of drizzle. You sigh. Another philosopher. Hermes grins. Hey, at least this one doesn't live next to a lightning tree. You head to the lounge to rest. As you settle into your usual spot, the memories of today swirl in your mind. The whispering wind, the gentle vineyard storm, the glimpse beyond the gate. And, faintly, the echo of laughter from something deep and three-headed. You close your eyes. The air is still. For now. The next morning arrives, slow and hazy, like a day that is unsure whether it wants to be remembered. You wake to the sound of distant thunder rumbling politely, the way thunder sometimes does when it is just stretching, not announcing anything urgent. Hermes greets you with an apple again. This one glows faintly and smells like honey and graphite. Big day, he says. Zeus is hosting a rebranding session. You tilt your head. He nods solemnly. He wants to update the image of the Thunderbolt. You are not entirely sure Thunderbolts need a new image. They are, by nature, quite dramatic already. Hermes shrugs. Apparently someone told him the mortals are calling lightning angry sky noodles. He did not take it well. You follow Hermes through Olympus's winding halls, past a corridor lined with golden busts that critique your posture as you walk by. Finally, you reach a large open-air amphitheater filled with clouds shaped into cushioned seats. At the front, Zeus paces beside an easel with multiple mood boards. You glance at them. One shows a bold shape like a spiral. Another looks like a glowing feather. A third appears to be made entirely of flowers. Zeus clears his throat. The sky dims slightly for dramatic effect. We need a bolt that says power, he announces, but also grace, something with a hint of mystery, yet unmistakably divine, and I am open to sparkle. From the audience, Athena raises a hand. Sparkle does not travel well through mist. Zeus sighs. Fine. A restrained shimmer. Dionysus, sprawled across 3 cushions, waves a goblet. What if the bolt leaves behind a rainbow scent? You know, like when you sneeze in a garden. The room murmurs. Hermes leans over and whispers to you. This is going to take a while. A bolt prototype floats to the front. It pulses with a soft coral glow and releases a light fragrance of cinnamon and static. Zeus studies it. This one feels like a brunch storm. I want something stronger. Another floats up, jagged and loud, crackling with energy. It accidentally zaps a decorative harp, which lets out a surprise chord before dissolving into mist. Closer, Zeus says, but tone it down for the mortals. Athena steps forward. We might consider form follows function. Do we want these bolts to simply strike, or tell a story? Hermes claps once. I vote for storytelling. You remain still, trying not to attract attention, but Zeus's eyes land on you. You, he says, you fly them. What makes a bolt memorable? Everyone turns to look. You clear your throat with a nervous whinny, and then, you do something unexpected. You open your satchel and pull out one of the training bolts, one that has traveled through storms and sunrises, one that hums gently now, content. You place it on the pedestal beside Zeus. It glows faintly. No fireworks, no scent, just quiet power. Zeus stares at it. This one, he says slowly, feels honest. Athena nods. It has purpose. Dionysus adds, could still use some sparkle? Zeus raises a hand. Fine, but subtle. The gods begin sketching new designs. A scroll appears and floats around the room, collecting notes. Someone suggests a bolt that hums lullabies. Someone else counters with the idea of a bolt that leaves behind gentle rainfall in the shape of philosophical questions. You quietly step back. Hermes follows you outside. Not bad, he says. Most rebrandings involve more shouting. You glance up at the sky. It has returned to its usual bright blue, scattered with friendly clouds. Hermes hands you a folded scroll. Your next delivery is a special one, something sentimental. You open the scroll. It is addressed to a nymph who lives in a highland glen where clouds are thin and time moves slower. The bolt enclosed is small and bright pink, barely pulsing. She retired, Hermes explains, but she used to shape thunder with her hands. This is a gift from Zeus. A thank you. You take the satchel and fly out again. The highland glen lies above the northern edge of the world, wrapped in mist that smells like time and rain. You find the nymph sitting beside a silver pond, braiding grass into long loops. She sees you and smiles. I thought they had forgotten. You land beside her and open the satchel. The bolt rises, flutters once, and settles gently into her open hands. She cradles it like a child. Her fingers glow. They still remember what matters, she says softly. You sit beside her for a while, watching the pond reflect clouds shaped like laughter. Eventually, you rise and head back to Olympus, where the rebranding session is still in full swing. You hear Zeus muttering, "What if the bolt made a dramatic entrance with fog?" Everyone loves fog. Hermes meets you at the edge of the amphitheater. How did she take it? You smile. She braided it into her hair. Hermes chuckles. Perfect. As you stretch your wings and prepare for your next flight, you realize that not every bolt is about thunder. Some are about remembering. The morning begins with the smell of rain-soaked parchment and warm moss. You wake slowly, your wings still heavy with the memory of yesterday's rebranding parade. There had been applause, of course, and one minor explosion that turned a decorative urn into a cloud of lavender. Hermes meets you in the corridor, holding a scroll sealed in green wax. He taps it against your nose. "Mail delivery today," he says. "And not just any mail. You've got something from Medusa." You blink. "Yes, that Medusa." He raises an eyebrow. "Relax. She retired." You follow him down a hallway lined with mirrors, all politely turned to face the wall. At the end, a platform waits, already holding a neat little parcel tied with twine and scented faintly with clay. Hermes explains as you examine it. After she stopped turning people into stone, she took up pottery. Runs a workshop now. Sends letters once a year to certain creatures she once interacted with. You glance at him. "She means you," Hermes says. Apparently she still feels attached. You did spring from her neck. After all. You nod slowly. It is a strange family tree. One head. 2 brothers. 1 flying horse. And now a thank you card. You take the package and leap into the sky. Her island is quiet, rimmed with tide pools and clusters of ceramic statues posing with exaggerated dignity. Most are birds, a few are turtles. One is a very smug-looking squirrel with a monocle. You land in front of a round clay hut with smoke curling from the chimney. A sign out front reads, "Medusa's pottery and occasional curses." The door creaks open before you can knock. She stands there, wearing an apron smeared with glaze and her hair tied back with vines. The snakes are noticeably absent. You glance at her eyes. She smiles. They're not active anymore. Retired, just like me. You nod. She takes the parcel, opens it, and finds a scroll tied with golden thread. She reads silently, then chuckles. "He still owes me a thunder-shaped teapot." She gestures for you to come inside. You duck under the low door frame and enter a room filled with shelves of pottery, some delicate, some absurd. One is shaped like a griffin doing yoga. Another resembles Zeus mid-sneeze. She hands you a cup. "Try this. It's herbal tea. No side effects. Probably." You sip carefully. It tastes like chamomile and secrets. She talks while she works, spinning clay on a wheel and forming it into a thunderbolt vase. "They always think the past disappears," she says, "but it just changes form, gets quieter, softer around the edges." She smooths the vase and sets it aside to dry. "Do you remember anything from before you flew?" she asks. You tilt your head. "A little light," she continues, "a little darkness, and a lot of confusion, I imagine. You were born in a moment. No one expected." You nod. "You were." She laughs gently. "And you flew anyway. Good for you." Outside, the sun begins to dip. The tide pools shimmer. You rise to leave. She stops you with a hand on your shoulder. "Take this." She hands you a small clay figurine. It's shaped like you, wings outstretched, one hoof raised. "For the vault," she says. "Put it somewhere ridiculous." You fly back to Olympus under a velvet sky. When you arrive, Hermes is waiting with a fresh scroll and a cup of honeyed air. "Survive the visit." You nod and hold out the figurine. He snorts with amusement. "I'm putting this next to the lightning duck." You follow him into the lounge. The other couriers are gathered around a low table, passing around jars of jam and trading stories about misfired bolts and singing clouds. Someone has baked something round and slightly glowing. No one knows if it's food or sculpture, so they eat it anyway. You settle into your usual cloud cushion, warm and tired. Medusa's words echo in your mind. The past does not disappear. It just changes form, and sometimes It sends you a letter with a clay pony inside. You wake to the sound of gentle tapping. Not thunder, not rain, just a soft, persistent knock. As you open one eye, you realize it is a scroll politely rapping against your window. It spins once, then settles in front of your nose like a cat asking to be read. You unfold it. At the top, written in crisp, all-feather script, is a heading you have never seen before: Annual Olympian Performance Review. You blink. Hermes appears beside you, holding 2 mugs of something frothy and pink. "Ah, she sent it early this year," he says, handing you a mug. Athena is feeling organized. You glance at the scroll again. It is quite long. A few words glow faintly, as if already preparing arguments. Hermes sips his drink. She grades everyone, even the thunder. You want to be well rested. You follow him through Olympus, past the usual halls, until you reach a stone chamber lined with tall windows. Athena waits at a central table, quill in hand, surrounded by ledgers, scrolls, and what appears to be a large diagram of Pegasus-shaped flight paths. She greets you with a nod. "Welcome. Please take a seat." You sit. She adjusts her glasses. "Let us begin." For the next hour, you are asked to recall your past deliveries, flight times, storm dispersals, and nymph avoidance ratios. She asks whether you've improved in scroll handling, whether your wingbeat rhythm has stabilized, and whether you have emotionally bonded with any bolts. You answer with nods, head tilts, and the occasional sigh. She makes notes in a book that smells like rain and pencil shavings. "Your response to the Crete incident was noted," she says, "as was your refusal to engage the rogue mist spirit near the mountain ridge. Wise." She turns the page. "The philosopher reports were mixed. One described you as inspiring, another described you as distracting in a metaphorical way." Hermes leans in. "That's actually high praise." Athena continues, "Your vault behavior is satisfactory. Your cloud etiquette has improved, and you now rank 3rd in the bolt handling tournament." You blink. You did not realize there was a tournament. "Your hoof prints are unusually symmetrical," she adds. "Statistically rare." You try not to look smug. Finally, she presents you with a small box. Inside is a single feather. It gleams silver blue, pulsing with quiet energy. "Recognition of service," she says, "and potential." You bow your head slightly. The feather glows brighter, then settles back into calm. Athena closes her book. You may go. You exit the room and step into a soft breeze. Hermes follows, grinning. "She gave you the feather. She never gives out the feather. That's like a promotion and a hug at the same time." You tuck the box into your satchel and flutter your wings, unsure whether to be proud or puzzled. Back at the lounge, you find a small crowd of couriers gathered around a notice board. At the top, written in swirling script, is a message: "Welcome to the Pegasus Fan Club." Beneath it are drawings. Some are scribbled with crayon, others carefully painted. All of them are of you, flying, delivering, napping. Hermes chuckles behind you. "They are from the Miniature Winged Donkey Society," he says. "They think you invented flight." You stare at the pictures. One of them shows you balancing a bolt on your nose. You never did that. Probably. There is a jar on the floor filled with cloudberries and a sign: "Offerings for the Sky Hero." You take a berry. It tastes like applause and early mornings. A scroll is pinned next to the drawings. It reads, "To the Pegasus of Thunder, thank you for the skies, the storms, and the stories. Your wings make the world feel bigger." You step back, a little dazed. Hermes nudges your shoulder. "Your performance review went well, and apparently, so did your fan mail." You nod, still processing. He hands you a new scroll, this one wrapped in ribbon and labeled, "Mount Etna not urgent, just curious." "It is a vacation day," he says. "Sort of. They just want to show you something, and maybe feed you lentils." You glance at the fan club once more. One of the drawings now includes you with a tiny crown. Then you open your wings. The air lifts you gently. Mount Etna waits with a warm fire and, you hope, a very good bowl of soup. You coast over the sparkling Mediterranean, the waves below dotted with curious dolphins and lazy sea breezes. The scroll from Hermes lies in your satchel, not buzzing or glowing, just gently resting like a friend who trusts you to arrive when you are ready. Mount Etna comes into view slowly, rising from the coastline in layered shades of charcoal and rust. Its plume of smoke is calm today, spiraling upward like a thoughtful sigh. You circle once, spotting a small stone patio carved into the mountain's slope. A figure waves from below, stirring something in a pot over open flame. As you land, the scent of simmering lentils, garlic, and thyme wraps around you like a blanket. The fire giant greets you with a grin. His beard is braided, his sandals are on the wrong feet, and his apron reads hot stuff. Literally, Pegasus, he calls. You are just in time. The soup is at peak gentleness. You nod politely. He gestures for you to settle by the fire. The stone beneath you is warm, but not uncomfortably so, like sitting on a sun-kissed rock after a long flight. He ladles soup into a bowl the size of a wagon wheel. Eat first, talk later, he says. The soup is rich and earthy, with a warmth that seeps into your feathers and makes your hooves feel a little floatier than usual. You do not speak, but the giant does not seem to mind. He hums as he adds another log to the fire and adjusts a kettle filled with something that smells suspiciously like roasted clouds. After a while, he speaks. They sent you because I asked for someone who understands storms, not someone who makes them, or sells them, or files complaints when the lightning gets poetic. You glance up from your soup. He continues, I found something in the mountain. Thought you should see it? He stands, surprisingly light on his feet for someone the size of a barn, and leads you around the corner to a narrow path. You follow him through patches of steaming moss and glowing rocks until you reach a cavern entrance. Inside, it is cooler. The stone walls shimmer faintly, and the air buzzes with quiet magic. At the center of the room sits an enormous, cracked egg. You tilt your head. I know, the giant says. It looks ridiculous. But listen. He taps the egg gently. A low hum echoes through the chamber. It sounds almost like a distant thunderstorm, muffled by time. I think, he says, this is where an old storm went to sleep. You circle the egg slowly. The cracks glow faintly blue, like veins of trapped lightning. Some storms, the giant says, are not born. They are laid. You blink. Historians still argue whether storms have life cycles. He adds, most say no. A few say yes. One says they are just misunderstood dragons. You step closer to the egg. The hum deepens, like a heartbeat sensing with yours. I don't want to wake it, the giant says, but I thought maybe it should know someone remembers it. You nod once, then lower your head and gently touch the shell with your nose. The hum shifts, warmer, calmer, as if the storm inside is dreaming, and it just smiled in its sleep. The giant wipes his hands on his apron and sighs. Well, that's enough mystery for one day. Want to see the sky balcony? It has excellent nap clouds. You follow him back outside. The sky balcony is just that, a wide ledge lined with puffed clouds and sun-warmed stones. The view stretches for miles. Below, you can see the sea, the villages, even the edge of the underworld if you squint. You lie down on the softest cloud and close your eyes. The fire giant sits beside you, sipping something from a mug shaped like a volcano. You're doing good work, he says. Better than most two-winged deliveries I've seen. You make a quiet noise of thanks, then doze a little while the sun drapes its arms over the mountain. When you wake, the giant hands you a scroll sealed in soot. Take that too, Hermes, he says. It's a recipe. And a warning. You nod. And as you fly away, you glance back one last time. The egg still hums, the soup still simmers, and the fire giant waves until you vanish into the clouds. By the time you return to Olympus, the vault is quiet. Most of the couriers are napping. Hermes takes the scroll without question and tucks it into his coat. He grins. You smell like soup and secrets. You nod. It has been a good day. The clouds above Olympus feel a little softer this morning, like someone fluffed them on purpose. You wake slowly, stretching your wings as the scent of roasted chestnuts and parchment curls through the air. A small scroll floats in beside you, twirling politely until you take it in your hooves. It is sealed with a golden thread and marked, Invitation to the Labyrinth Express. Hermes appears behind you, grinning too broadly. They're testing a new route today, he says. The labyrinth's been reopened. You blink. Not for minotaurs. He adds quickly, he's on sabbatical. You read the scroll again. It's a formal invitation from the Department of Mystical Pathways, inviting you to be the first to test a bolt delivery through the fabled labyrinth, the one built by Daedalus himself. Apparently, someone decided that twisting corridors and ancient architecture would make a stylish courier shortcut. You follow Hermes through Olympus's winding halls, past a doorway labeled probably unsafe, and emerge into a courtyard where the labyrinth sprawls across the stone like a sleeping animal. Its walls are high and made of marble veined with silver. They hum faintly, like they are remembering something. An official in a pointy hat greets you. Welcome, he says. This version of the labyrinth self-adjusts. It listens to mood. Try not to think about sandwiches unless you want snack walls. Hermes hands you a satchel with a single bolt tucked neatly inside. It is long, slender, and colored a shimmering copper green. Deliver this to the exit platform, Hermes says. Don't worry. The bolt knows where to go. You flap your wings once, then step into the maze. Immediately, the air changes. The light bends slightly. The marble walls stretch taller. The floor shifts into hexagonal tiles that click softly beneath your hooves. You walk, and the bolt begins to glow faintly. Around the first corner, you find a mural of Daedalus himself, hammer in hand, frowning at blueprints while a pigeon steals his pen. You keep walking. The corridor widens into a small plaza filled with statues of confused heroes. One of them holds a string. Another wears to left sandals. A third has clearly been turned into a bench. You pass by carefully. Further in, the bolt pulses. You take a sharp right, then a slow left, then 3 stairs down into a hallway lined with windows. Except the windows, look out into other hallways. One features a family of mice having tea. Another shows you from 5 minutes ago. You blink. The bolt flickers. You pick up speed. A shadow passes over the wall beside you. A rumble sounds behind you. Something is waking up. You trot faster. Around the next corner, the walls shimmer and shift into hedges. The floor becomes soft grass. The bolt glows brighter. Ahead, a clearing opens. In the center is the Minotaur. He is wearing a floral apron and holding a tray of muffins. You freeze. He waves. Testing the new hospitality suite, he says. Want one? You take a cautious muffin. It tastes like banana and thunderberries. Lovely day for a delivery, he adds. You nod and continue. The maze shifts again. Now the walls are mirrors. Each reflection shows a different version of you. Some wear hats. One is riding a unicycle. You close your eyes and walk forward, trusting the bolt. Finally, a spiral staircase appears. You climb it slowly, each step echoing like laughter in a canyon. At the top, a platform stretches out, and a small pedestal awaits. You place the bolt on it. It hums once, then vanishes. The pedestal flashes green. Delivery complete. A voice somewhere above you says, "Well done. You have passed the maze." A door opens to reveal Hermes leaning against the frame, holding a juice box. "Quick for a first run," he says. Most people get distracted by the unicycle version of themselves. You step out into the courtyard again. The sun feels realer out here, more solid. Hermes hands you a towel. "The Minotaur said you were polite." "That is rare." You shrug. "I told him the muffins were slightly dry," Hermes adds. He took it well. You both laugh and begin walking back toward the vault. "That bolt was experimental," Hermes says. "Designed to see clarity. Worked well, apparently." You glance up at the sky. The clouds seem calmer, the sun steadier, and something in your stride feels lighter. As you return to your resting spot, a new scroll floats down. This one is short. No mission, no map, just 3 words in familiar handwriting. "Nice delivery? Wings." The next scroll you receive arrives with a soft puff of cinnamon-scented wind. It drifts lazily through the open sky window and lands on your back with the gentleness of a leaf that knows exactly where it belongs. The seal is deep orange, pressed with the emblem of a small house surrounded by fig trees. Hermes peers over your shoulder and grins. "Ah, the bakery temple," he says. "They want a celebratory drizzle storm. Their 100th batch of sacred sweet rolls just passed the fluff test." You raise an eyebrow. They take baking seriously, he explains. The goddess of rising dough is watching. You flap your wings and head toward the southern slopes, where golden fields meet thick olive groves and lazy goats blink slowly at the sky. The bakery temple sits atop a warm hill, its walls made of sun-baked clay and its roof tiled in a mosaic of bread crusts and buttered pastry shells. You land gently beside a courtyard where dozens of loaves are cooling on polished marble slabs. Priests in aprons bow solemnly, one of them holding a rolling pin like a scepter. "You are the storm courier?" she asks. You nod. "Good. We baked offerings." She gestures toward a stone table filled with sweet rolls, braided honey bread, and what looks like a sculpture of Hermes entirely made out of croissants. You eye the croissant nose. It is not flattering. The priestess leads you to the center of the courtyard. A mosaic of a thundercloud spirals outward beneath your hooves. She places a bowl at your feet, smaller than most, wrapped in wax parchment and tied with twine. "This one should not shout," she says. "Just sprinkle." You take off and rise slowly above the temple. The wind smells like butter and flour. The sky brightens with your ascent. When you reach the perfect height, you flick the bolt outward. It spins once, then unspools like a ribbon across the sky. Tiny droplets of rain begin to fall. Not cold, not heavy, just enough to tap gently against the tiles and cling sweetly to the edges of the baked goods below. One loaf giggles. You are not entirely sure how that happened, but no one seems surprised. The priests cheer quietly. They do not shout. It is, after all, a sacred storm. Instead, they begin humming a hymn that rises with the steam from the bread and carries a warm peace across the hillside. You spiral down again and are greeted with a small basket of thank you pastries. One of them is shaped like you. It even has almond wings. You nod appreciatively. As you rise into the sky again, the gentle drizzle continues, and the clouds curl into the shape of sleeping cats. Halfway back to Olympus, you pass over a cluster of cloud houses. A group of young wind sprites waves up at you, holding signs made of fog. One reads, "We saw the bread storm." Another says, "Fly low, fly proud." You dip your wings in acknowledgement. When you return to the vault, Hermes is attempting to balance 3 goblets of juice on his knees while juggling scrolls. "Success?" he asks without looking. You drop the almond wing pastry into his lap. He catches it expertly and takes a bite. "Perfect," he says with his mouth full. They remembered the cinnamon core this time. A small scroll flutters beside you and unfolds with a pop. It is from the goddess of rising dough herself. Her writing swirls like steam. "You are welcome at our ovens any time." Storm butter ratio achieved. You smile as Hermes hands you a fresh scroll. "Next delivery," he says, "goes to a cave painter in the eastern cliffs. She requested something that smells like memory and lights up the dark corners without scaring the lizards." You nod. He adds, "And she says hi." Apparently, you once flew over her sketches and made her cry. In a good way. You tuck the scroll into your satchel and step out into the waiting breeze. The wine lifts you gently, as if even the sky knows you are carrying something delicate again. You think of sweet rolls, of sacred drizzle, of gentle bread that laughed, and of how even a pastry can become a prayer. The flight east takes you along the spine of a cloud bridge that fades in and out of visibility, a trick of the high sun and the thin air. Below, the land changes from green pastures to jagged stone and rust-colored cliffs. Birds glide far beneath you, casting shadows over patches of silver dust and wild fig trees clinging to impossible ledges. You follow the path Hermes marked, veering toward a seam in the stone wall where the cliffs yawn into a quiet cavern. Smoke curls from its mouth like a sigh after a long nap. The cave painter waits outside. She is wrapped in a robe dyed with ochre and coal dust, and her hands are stained every shade of the earth. A small lizard perches on her shoulder, flicking its tail in greeting. "You made good time," she says, smiling faintly. "The breeze told me you were on the way." You land softly. She reaches into a woven satchel and pulls out a narrow jar with a carved cork. "This is the scent," she explains, "of memory, of firelight and the first time someone looked at the stars and thought they were watching a story." You sniff. It smells like warm rocks, wet ash, and something older than rain. She uncorks it, and the scent flows upward, swirling into the cavern like an invitation. Then she unwraps a bolt from a cloth pouch. It is shaped more like a brush than a weapon. Its tip flickers with pale gold, almost hesitant to glow. "I do not want thunder," she says. "I want shadow painting." You nod and take the bolt. Inside the cave, the walls pulse with past lives. Images of deer, storms, and winged horses like yourself flicker across the surfaces, drawn with charcoal, dust, and dreams. You walk slowly, guided by the quiet hum of the bolt. At the center of the cave stands a circular chamber with no ceiling. Sunlight filters down in narrow ribbons. You place the bolt in the middle of the stone floor. It does not spark or flash. Instead, it pulses. Once, twice, then it begins to cast long, slow-moving shadows against the wall, as if the figures drawn there have found breath again. The deer begin to run. The wind sprites begin to dance, and one figure, a horse with wings outstretched, rises on its back legs and spins across the wall with a grace that belongs to something remembered. The painter gasps softly. She kneels and begins adding to the scene with practiced strokes, blending the living shadows with fresh lines and gentle color. A thundercloud appears behind the dancer. A ripple of wind crosses the stone ceiling. You stay silent. This is not your scene to shape, only to deliver. After some time, the bolt dims and settles into stillness. The cave falls quiet again, though the movement lingers in the silence. The painter sets down her brush and smiles. "They will remember now," she says. "The shadows will keep the story." Outside, the sun has shifted. The light is softer, as if it has been warmed by what it saw inside. She gives you a piece of bark wrapped in cloth. "For Hermes," she says. "It is not a snack. Tell him that." You nod. Before you take off, the lizard on her shoulder chirps and scurries down to your hoof. It taps twice with its tail, then climbs back. You are not sure what it meant, but it seemed important. The flight back is slow. You ride the edges of a breeze that smells like charcoal and figs. A thunderbird passes in the distance, coasting on its own schedule. When you return to Olympus, the vault feels quieter than usual. The air is thick with afternoon restfulness. You find Hermes balancing a scroll on his nose while humming to himself. You drop the cloth-wrapped bark into his lap. He unwraps it and snorts. Of course she made bark paper into a lizard poem. That woman has never met a metaphor she did not paint. He sets it aside gently and pats your shoulder. "Good delivery," he says. The cave glowed for half a day. Even Zeus noticed. You settle into your resting cloud, the images from the cave still moving behind your eyes. The dancing deer, the running wind, the winged horse casting light from memory. You close your eyes. Tonight, the shadows will tell stories without needing words. You wake to the sound of tinkling bells, soft and rhythmic, like the world is politely asking you to notice something delightful. A scroll sits nearby, tied in golden ribbon and lightly dusted with glitter. This is not your usual dispatch. Hermes appears wearing mismatched shoes and holding a pastry shaped like a crown. "Royal request," he says. Mouthful. "The Queen of Wine Chimes wants a sunrise bolt." You stretch slowly. She's having a ceremony. Something about the anniversary of the first successful breeze. He adds, shrugging. Very important to her people. The scroll is short. It reads, "To Pegasus, deliver a sunrise bolt that sings, nothing harsh, a whisper that glows." You nod, tuck the scroll away, and make your way to the eastern cliffs again, though farther this time, where the clouds pile high like pillows left in the sun too long. You glide low until the queen's palace comes into view. It is not large, not golden, but every inch of it dances. Chimes made of glass, bone, coral, and feathers dangle from eaves and windows. They shimmer in soft breeze-born music, not loud but layered, like a lullaby made of sparkle and memory. The queen waits on a balcony. Her dress moves as if made from mist. Her eyes are silver gray and kind. "You are early," she says, smiling. "I like that." She offers you a bolt wrapped in silk. It is barely glowing, pale yellow with a soft curl at one end. "Wake the sky gently," she instructs. No sudden applause. You ascend slowly, higher than you usually fly, until the edge of night begins to pull away. Below, the palace gleams. The chimes begin to stir. You hold the bolt, then release it. It drifts outward, twirls once, and unfurls in silence. Then a soft tone begins, just one. Then another. The bolt dissolves into hundreds of tiny glowing notes, like dewdrops that learn to hum. The sun lifts gently over the horizon, not a dramatic rise. A welcome. The music reaches the chimes. They respond, dancing lightly. The palace fills with sound that isn't quite song, but close. From the sky, you watch the queen raise her arms and smile toward the sunrise. No one shouts. No one claps. The day simply begins. You circle once and descend slowly. When you land, she bows her head. That was exactly right, she says. Even the stubborn wind in the west stopped to listen. She places a single feather in your satchel. It is silver white and humming very faintly. For balance, she says. For days when thunder forgets to whisper. As you glide away from her palace, the chimes continue playing, and the breeze feels softer somehow. More aware, you fly toward Olympus, taking the long route through a corridor of early morning clouds that still remember their dreams. Hermes is waiting as always. He takes one look at you, sees the feather, and nods. She liked it, he says. She rarely gives feathers. Last time she did, it was to a harp that made a god weep. In a good way. He hands you a short scroll. This next one is odd. You unroll it. To the Pegasus. Deliver a bolt to the mirror lake. Drop it gently. Then wait. No signature. No instructions. Hermes shrugs. Sometimes a lake just needs a reminder that it matters. You look toward the horizon, where the lake gleams like polished silver. As you take off, the sun glimmers behind you, and the wind carries the last notes of the queen's chimes like a blessing tucked into the folds of the day. And for the first time in a long while, the sky feels like it's humming just for you. You drift above the landscape in no hurry, carried by currents that feel as if they have been waiting just for you. The mirror lake lies ahead, shimmering like a forgotten coin tucked between two green hills. Even from high above, you can tell it is unnaturally still. Not a ripple, not a sigh. Just a wide, gleaming surface that reflects the sky too perfectly, as if it resents being anything other than a reflection. You circle once, then descend slowly. The air around the lake is heavy with silence, not an eerie silence, but a deep, settled hush. As if the place has grown used to being left alone, you land gently at the water's edge. The grass here is soft and springy, but the lake does not react to your presence. It continues to mirror the clouds with unnerving precision. Even your own reflection seems slightly too calm. You take the bolt from your satchel. It is smooth and round at the tip, with soft silver coloring and a faint glow that pulses like a resting breath. You hover just above the lake and let it go. The bolt drops, touches the surface, and disappears without a sound. Nothing happens, then something does. The surface of the lake ripples, once, then twice. The reflection of the sky stirs like someone has gently breathed across a mirror. Slowly, images begin to rise, not of the present, not of anything you recognize. You see a forest that no longer exists, a pair of hands scooping water into a clay cup, a bird with too many wings landing on a branch and singing a note that makes trees bloom. You see a Pegasus, not you, but something close. Its wings are smaller, its eyes uncertain. You see it drop a bolt into the lake. Then that image fades, and another rises. You see the lake itself, younger, narrower, full of stones and frogs and reeds, children laughing at its edge. A time when the lake was not reflective, just useful. Then you see a streak of lightning flash across the sky and strike the surface. The lake shudders once and begins to hold still. To still. Historians still argue whether lakes can hold memory, whether bodies of water can choose to reflect instead of move. Some say it is magic, others say it is grief. The ripple spreads outward again. Now, your reflection returns. But this time, it blinks, moves. The lake has seen you. You hover in place. The air is warmer now, as if the lake has exhaled for the first time in centuries. Birds begin to chirp in the nearby trees. A small breeze skips across the water, disrupting the perfect reflection just enough to remind the world that it is not made of glass. You hear something shift behind you, a voice, perhaps, Or a memory? You turn, but there is no one there. Only the lake, only your wings. You fly up again, the wind lifting you gently as if to say thank you. Far below, the lake ripples once more and then settles, but not as perfectly as before. It allows a little movement now, a little light, a hint of texture. It looks real. Hermes is waiting for you at Olympus, perched on a low step, humming a song with no lyrics. You land beside him. Did it change? He asks without looking up. You nod. He tosses you a peach. Good. Lakes can get dramatic when they are ignored too long. You settle into the quiet of the vault, the peach resting in your satchel for later. The silence here is different from the lakes. It is warm, lived in. As you rest your head on a soft cloud pillow, you feel a new scroll slide under your wing. You do not open it yet. Instead, you think of the lake, of the ripples, of the strange memory that looked like you, but not quite, and you wonder, quietly, if that Pegasus was also delivering something, or maybe just being remembered. You close your eyes. Some bolts are not loud. Some simply ask the water to wake up. You wake to the scent of pine needles and the faint rustle of parchment. A new scroll lies curled beside you, tied in bark brown ribbon. This one smells like wood smoke and maple sap. You know before opening it that it will not involve lightning. You unroll the scroll and read. To the Pegasus, we request your presence at the Grove of Old Names. No bolt delivery, just wings. Come quietly. Speak less than the trees. Hermes peeks over your shoulder and raises one eyebrow. They only write when the roots are restless, he murmurs. The last courier they summoned was asked to carry a seed that never stopped humming. You take off gently, rising into the clear morning air. The vault fades behind you as the clouds thin, giving way to the endless green of the lowland forests. You fly for some time, following the rivers that shimmer like stories and weave through the land like threads on a loom. Eventually, you see it, the Grove of Old Names. It is not large, not marked by columns or banners. It is simply a circle of trees older than memory, their branches so thick and layered they block out much of the sky. The grove holds its own weather, a cool, filtered hush broken only by birdsong and the occasional drop of dew falling exactly where it wants to. You land just beyond the ring of trees and walk slowly inward. The grass underhoof is soft, springy, and feels like it listens to your thoughts. No one greets you. There are no guides, only the trees. You walk the inner circle, and then you hear it. A rustle, not from wind, but from voice. Ancient and patient. The largest tree at the center bears a hollow that glows softly. Within it rests a pouch. No label, no instruction, just presence. You lean forward and sense a request. Not spoken, not written, just known. You nudge the pouch gently and tuck it into your satchel. It is warm and faintly vibrating, like a kitten dreaming of thunder. The tree rustles once more. A single leaf drifts down, brushing your wingtip. You take this as permission to leave. Outside the grove, the sky feels a little brighter. You take off again, careful not to rise too quickly, as if disturbing the air would scatter the memory too soon. On the way back, the pouch hums now and then, not rhythmically, just in quiet bursts, like it is trying to remember a song. You wonder what it holds. A name, a story, a weather pattern disguised as a lullaby. Hermes meets you at the cloud gate with his usual tilt of the head. Let me guess, he says. They gave you a pouch with no instructions and a humming habit. You hand it over carefully. He does not open it. Instead, he places it on a velvet cushion near the vault and lights a small lantern beside it. Give it a few days, he says. It'll reveal itself when it's ready. You watch the pouch glow faintly. For a moment, it pulses in sync with the lantern. Then it quiets. You walk to your usual cloud and lie down, feathers still cool from the grove shade. Hermes tosses a scroll at your hoofs before leaving. Next one's more active, he says. Lightning patrol over the floating reefs. The coral has been stealing sparks again. You do not reply. Not yet. For now, you rest. You listen to the hush of the vault, and you think of trees that remember every name ever whispered beneath their leaves. You are halfway through a dream about floating citrus fruit when a scroll flutters in and bounces lightly off your nose. You blink, still groggy, and unfurl it with one hoof. The handwriting is airy and a little tilted, like it was penned mid-glide. To the winged courier. Tonight's moon requests your company. Pack lightly. Bring no thunder. She has a question. You stare at the note for a moment, then glance out the window. The moon is not yet visible, but the horizon is already silvering. A soft breeze tickles your mane. Even without a bolt to carry, the request feels weighty. Hermes steps into view, holding a small jar that glows faintly blue. She left this last time, he says. Called it dreamlight. Said you might need it if things get too quiet. You take the jar, tuck it into your satchel, and step onto the nearest breeze. It lifts you gently, as though the very air knows where you are going. The moon rises slowly, like a secret being told. You head toward her glow, past drifting cloud banks and sleeping airships, past the edge of usual weather and into the soft, glassy stretch where sky meets space in a kind of hush. At last, she appears. The moon hangs before you, larger than usual, wearing her evening clouds like a shawl. You hover just near her edge, where the light pools like cream and the wind barely breathes. She speaks without sound. Her voice is the rhythm of waves on distant shores. It curls inside your thoughts like silk. I have watched, she says, every bolt you've carried, every message sent, every spark tossed like a pebble into the stream of time. You do not speak. You wait. She continues. Do you know why the sky needs couriers? You tilt your head slightly. It is not a trick question. It is a real one. The kind that does not have a single answer. You think of all your deliveries. The wild ones. The gentle ones. The one to the lake. The drizzle over sweet rolls. The bolt that danced in a cave. You remember the pouch of quiet humming. You meet her gaze. The answer, though unspoken, fills the space between you. Because stories need legs. Because memory must travel. Because even silence must be carried sometimes. She smiles, a slow crescent beam. You understand, she says. Good. She opens a small fold in her light and pulls out a ribbon. It glows with moonlight and shimmers like dew on silver leaves. Wear this, she says, when you need to be reminded that not all messages need noise. You take the ribbon gently and loop it through your satchel strap. The moon brightens for a moment, then fades slightly. Before she dims fully, she adds one last phrase. There is a storm asleep inside a pearl in the coral reefs. Wake it with care. And then she is gone, not vanished, just quieter. You float slowly back toward the vault, not quite ready to land. The wind carries you like a hammock rocking beneath a star-soaked sky. Hermes greets you at the door. He does not ask questions. He just nods toward the ribbon and says, she talks to so few. You nod in return. He points to a new scroll waiting on a perch near the bolt shelf. It pulses faintly. The coral seal flickers. You sigh gently, already knowing this one will not be easy. But then you touch the moon ribbon on your strap, and your shoulders feel lighter. Not everything hard must be loud. Not every storm must arrive shouting. And sometimes, you deliver not lightning, but presence. You approach the coral scroll with quiet hooves. It hums faintly, not a melody exactly, but something like breath being held beneath water. Hermes stands nearby with a bucket of seawater and a rather serious expression. They'll be expecting you, he says. The reef doesn't stay still for long. You nod and lift the scroll. Its seal is shaped like a shell curled into a spiral, and when you break it, a faint mist escapes with the scent of salt and old sunlight. The message inside reads, to the winged one. The coral reefs have gone to quiet. The pearl slumbers. It must wake. Gently, carefully, Hermes hands you a bolt wrapped in kelp thread. It's shorter than most, with tiny bubbles inside that drift slowly from tip to base. This one's tuned to aquatic resonance, he says. If it vibrates too fast, it will sing instead of spark. You arch one brow. Just aim low and breathe slow, he adds. You take to the sky, gliding over the warm wind currents that lead to the southern sea. Below, the color shifts from green to deep sapphire. The reefs begin to appear, glowing faintly beneath the surface. They stretch in all directions, more like a living city than a landscape. You descend slowly until your hooves skim the tips of the waves. A group of dolphins whistles as they pass. A sea turtle waves with one flipper. Somewhere below, something enormous exhales. You find the pearl easily. It rests in the center of the reef, nestled in coral arms that pulse gently like a heart. The pearl is huge, nearly the size of a temple dome, and covered in thin, moving patterns that look like clouds trapped beneath glass. The reef is still. You hover above the pearl and release the bolt. It drops in a slow spiral, gliding like a ribbon through the water. As it touches the pearl, a ripple spreads. The coral glows in a slow wave, as though it is waking from a dream. The bolt disappears. Then the reef hums. Not loudly, just enough to send ripples through the water, enough to lift a school of glowing fish from their nests and encourage a particularly shy jellyfish to pirouette. The pearl begins to spin, just a little. The cloud patterns on its surface dissolve into star shapes. A deep tone echoes through the water, low and round and content. Historians still argue whether the coral reefs were ever sentient, or simply responsive, whether the reef chooses its rhythms or is merely nudged by time and tide. But today, you feel a presence, soft and large and old. The reef sees you. It sends a bubble upward, filled with light and scent and song. The bubble rises and bursts softly beside your wing. Inside, for just a moment, you hear laughter, familiar and strange, like something that has always known your name, even when you did not. The reef settles. The glow fades to a low shimmer. You turn and rise back toward the sky, the wind catching beneath your wings with surprising ease, as though the air itself has grown lighter. You do not rush. You float, carried more than flying, until Olympus reappears against the horizon like a familiar smile. Hermes is waiting. As always. You didn't explode, he says. That's a good start. You nod. He hands you a piece of coral shaped like a feather. For the vault, he says. Apparently, they want to contribute to your collection. You place it carefully beside the clay horse from Medusa and the silver moon ribbon. The vault glows faintly in response. Hermes stretches, yawns, and passes you a scroll with no label. Don't open it yet, he says. It's from tomorrow. You blink. He shrugs. Time is weird near reefs. You curl onto your cloud cushion, your wings still damp with sea air and your hooves salty and warm. You close your eyes and think of the pearl, of the way it spun, of the hum that filled the reef, of the laughter in the bubble, and you wonder how many things wait quietly, just needing to be seen. The scroll from tomorrow hums softly on your cloud-side table. You eye it with the suspicion one reserves for objects that defy the usual rules of time. Hermes has vanished, muttering something about toast and paradoxes. The vault is otherwise silent. You pick up the scroll and unroll it slowly. The handwriting is yours. To me, by the time you read this, you will have flown through storms, danced above temples, rested beside dreamlight, and awakened sleeping reefs. One final delivery. No rush. Just bring yourself. Vault rooftop. Dusk. You blink. Then you rise. There is no need for speed. The day is already leaning into evening, the light softer, more gold than fire. You climb the spiraling staircase that circles the vault's dome. Few couriers come up here. It is not forbiddance, just quiet, reserved for moments like this. When you reach the top, the sky opens, and there, waiting, is a single bolt. It rests in a nest of feathers, threads, petals, and mist. It glows with a slow, pulsing warmth. No scroll, no message, just a presence that feels familiar. You step forward. You touch the bolt. It does not spark. It breathes. And in that breath, you feel everything. Every step through the labyrinth. Every drizzle over sacred bread. Every shadow that danced in a cave. The silent gaze of the lake. The lullaby of coral. The question from the moon. You realize, gently, that this delivery is not to be carried. It is to be released. You take one step back. Then you open your wings and speak without words. The bolt rises. It spirals once, then twice. Then it dissolves into light. The sky responds with silence, then a sigh, then a ripple of wind that wraps around your feathers and says, quite clearly, well flown. You sit for a while. The stars begin to appear, one by one, as if someone is lighting them on your behalf. A small cloud floats by, carrying a pastry and a folded note from Hermes. You've earned a nap. Take two. Tell the stars I said hello. You laugh, quietly. Then you lie down, the pastry resting beside your head like a sweet-smelling guardian. Above you, the stars blink slowly, like old friends settling in for a long evening of shared silence. And as you drift off, the wind hums. Not a song, just a memory. Carried, not forgotten. Now your wings are folded. Your hooves are still. The sky above has deepened into that velvet kind of darkness that holds you gently, but firmly, like a friend who knows when not to speak. The vault is quiet now, its stone warmed by the day's stories, its corridors humming with the residue of delivery and return. You can still feel the moon's ribbon near your shoulder. You can still hear the reef's lullaby if you listen closely enough. Let that gentle hush surround you. Let your breath move slowly. Let your eyes soften. There is no more flying to be done tonight. No scrolls waiting. No bolts humming. Only the faint glow of one last light. Far above, a star twinkles just a little brighter. Not because you're looking, but because it remembers you looked once. And now, it watches in return. So rest now, gentle winged one. Let the clouds carry your dreams. Let the wind smooth your thoughts. You've done well. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Good night.